So at the release of this video, we have managed to get our hands on all iPhone 13s, which were released early of October 2021. From the iPhone 13 itself to the iPhone 13 Pro Max to even the 13 mini. If you'd like to see our comprehensive reviews on those phones, you may click in the links in the description for our thoughts on these premium built devices. And now we have with us is the iPhone 13 Pro. But this video won't be just your ordinary review. No. It's going to be primarily focused on these huge circles on the back of the phone, which are its cameras. Having the ability to capture ProRAW photos, which we will be editing in Lightroom to see the advantage of shooting in RAW formats, and now ProRes video. So before we nerd out and get technical on these cameras, let's get simplified. Starting off with the specs, you get a triple 12 megapixel camera setup consisting of a primary wide, a telephoto lens, and an ultra wide lens. Consistency is key here, from switching to different focal lengths to image outputs themselves, producing the right levels of exposure, sharpness, detail, and colors, which are true toned even in different outdoor or indoor and even low lit scenarios, giving you that natural depth of field or bokeh with an f1.5 aperture using the primary lens, and seems to emulate that big sensor look which was only available in the iPhone 12 Pro Max last year. Simply by just tapping to focus on a subject leaves you with a smooth fall off on the background while retaining balanced highlights and shadows. The ultra-wide lens is top of its class, with anti-distortion lens correction wizardry, keeping straight lines from edge to edge of the frame without any weird banding. You could also use it for macro photography in this mode, with some minor faults of chromatic aberration around the edges of some objects. It does, however, switch between the primary lens to the ultra-wide lens automatically when you move closer to an object about 2 centimeters distance. And it does kind of get annoying when you can't switch it back manually because it doesn't let you know when it does the switch. Kind of wish there was just a toggle for this, and would really hope for a software update that could give you this option without having to dive deeper into the camera settings. Lastly is the telephoto lens, which is now upgraded from a 2.5x in the iPhone 12 Pro to a 3x in this model. Still very consistent with its image quality, but I must say at 15x zoom is where the iPhone 13 Pro falls short compared to some Androids, and that could easily crush its performance when it comes to clarity and sharpness. At this range, photos end up just looking like a painting more so than a picture. But as long as you stick to the minimum 3x zoom, it'll do great for most indoor and outdoor scenarios. Now, as a photographer myself, I do always opt for taking raw photos, given that most mirrorless cameras and DSLRs come with the option of capturing both RAW and JPEG files at the same time, which is essentially what Apple ProRAW was aimed to be, in the likes of being in the best of both worlds, retaining sufficient data of an image taken by the sensor while keeping the file sizes low enough to give you that full control when editing an image. I did, however, make the mistake of not realizing the RAW toggle to be switched off when launching the camera app, which is an easy fix by going into the camera format settings and making sure photo capture for Apple ProRAW is enabled. Coming into its video performance is mostly where I found the iPhone 13 Pro to be one of the best video image quality when it comes to phone cameras, topping at 4K 60.
What the f does that mean, Kobe Bryant?
You're welcome.
Now, I'm only saying this at this time of this recording, and I could change my thoughts and opinion if I ever get to review something else that may be coming out this year or even early 2022. But for now, I will stand by my experience with this phone given its image quality, coming out with a 12 megapixel sensor when shooting at 4K 25 frames per second. While there are some Androids pushing over 100 megapixels, and 8K recording or AI video features may sound impressive, on a more film philosophy take is, how does the image look? Specifically on how an image looks on people or skin tones and how it complements the surroundings of your subject. Not forgetting to mention how it performs in low light conditions, which I found to be consistent yet again when managing exposure. Usually in this scenario, like strobing lights would easily confuse some cameras when prioritizing focus points, highlights, noise, and sometimes even white balance. all of which happening at once at 25 frames per second, and even 120 frames per second at 1080p. So if that doesn't impress you on a technical standpoint on how these footage examples performed from a 12 megapixel sensor, then maybe I'm just blind and should probably consider changing careers. The only gripe I have is that I should have shot in 4K 30 frames per second instead of 25 frames per second, given that motion blur seems to be a bit too prominent when using handheld or in low light. Slightly off from what the look I was hoping for after looking back at it on a bigger screen. As well as 240 frames per second at 720p gets a bit too noisy under artificial lighting, and just hope to see 1080p be the lowest setting someday, because after all, we are reaching the end of 2021 already, and 720p was so last decade. Cinematic mode has definitely taken headlines over this new implemented feature brought to the new iPhones, and I do commend it for having its uses for when you intend to rack focus throughout a shoot. In case anybody who's watching, and if you'd like to see us make a short film with this feature, do drop us a comment, and who knows, we'll try to come up with something. This would positively open new advances for filmmakers on a budget, given how expensive the more professional grade cameras are now in the market in comparison to this iPhone 13 Pro. But I personally didn't find it to be useful enough for casual moments, and I'm not too big of a fan of fake portrait modes in the first place. Last but not least is ProRes video, which I have to mention is only available for the Pro models with over 128 gigs memory capacity, given that 1 minute of 4K footage will set you back by 6 gigs. So if you plan to shoot ProRes all the way, you can kind of see how it'll just eat up your memory space in no time. Hi, future Fitri here. Just want to make a correction. You can get the iPhone 13 Pro with 128 gigs. That will come with ProRes. What I'm trying to say is you should be getting more than 128 gigs, considering that 1 minute of 4K footage in ProRes will result into 6 gigs. So at least what I'm trying to say, you would be losing up on memory space. I thought I should just mention that. Okay, back to the review. Now you could expand this up to 1 terabyte of storage like the one we have here, but I personally feel that 1 terabyte in a phone is just overkill. Then again, if you're the type of person who doesn't like backing up storage or shoots video content on the daily with your phone, then yes, max out if you can afford the 1 terabyte at 7,199 ringgit. Or you could just opt for the 256 gig model, priced at 5,399 ringgit or 1,819 Sing dollars. Because once you shoot in ProRes, you wouldn't want to go back to anything else. High dynamic range, 10-bit, so good. It's just ridiculously good. Which tops at 4K 30 frames per second and 60 frames per second at 1080p. I'll just let the footage speak for itself, and you can be the judge of your own. I know at this point it sounds like I'm favoring Apple for what they've done here, but reality is never too far away from the truth. When I was coming into this review with unbiased opinions, being a frequent Android user myself, I can't help but to feel excited now having cameras of this quality that could easily fit into my pocket. Above all specs and features a camera is capable of, a good camera should give you the autonomy of confidence when capturing all of your shots. And the iPhone 13 Pro certainly has given me the confidence to just get out there. No matter the condition, just go out and shoot.